Good morning. Happy Wednesday, fourth grade. I'm excited to be back with you this week. I'm Miss Whitaker. Most of you know me by now. But we are going to be working today on a close reading text in our week 6 packet. Again, these dates are wrong, so you can cross those out. But it's going to be that week 6 packet, unit 5, week 6. Okay? So we're going to jump right in today. Go ahead and flip past this vocabulary page. Make sure you guys are doing these vocabulary pages and filling out the Venn diagrams at the bottom. You should be going over those in small group or just at home. Flip over. Today we're going to be in the text called Courage in Denmark, Resistance to the Nazis in World War II. Okay. So before we begin, I just wanted to kind of bring us back to the setting of our text, both our novel and our close read. And so we know Ms. Gans has been guiding us through Number the Stars, and we know that Number the Stars is set in Denmark during the Holocaust. And we know that Anne-Marie and her family have shown great courage trying to help Ellen and her family and other Jewish friends escape from the Nazis. And so what I want you guys to understand is that these stories in Number of the Stars are actually based upon fact. While the characters of Anne-Marie and Ellen and Peter and Mr. and Mrs. Rosen and the Johansons, those are not necessarily specific people in history, real people in history, but their stories and their lives are based on real events. And so we call this historical fiction. And so while we're reading this historical fiction in our novel study, I want you guys to see the real history that this novel is based upon. Okay, so you're going to see a lot of similarities between the things that we've learned about in our novel Number the Stars when we're reading this text today called Courage in Denmark. Okay, so before we begin, of course, we got to think of our thinking job and find the correct genre and thinking job. Okay, so we're going to preview our text. Now, I kind of gave it away because I told you it was about real things, so we know it's nonfiction, but if I didn't know that coming in, I would go ahead and preview, and here I see a picture of some real people. It says they are destroying a flag from a building, so this is a real picture. I also know that World War II was a real thing that happened, and so as I preview, I can kind of go through the lens of I'm pretty sure it's nonfiction, but I'm going to double check. So World War II was a global conflict that lasted from 1939 to 1945. It involved more than 1 million people in over 30 countries. The Allied powers, including the United States, the United Kingdom, and Soviet Union, worked together to defeat the Axis powers, which consisted of Germany, Italy, and Japan. During this time, Germany was led by Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party, which planned and executed the mass killing of over 11 million people, including more than 6 million Jews. This was called the Holocaust. At the beginning of World War II, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway declared that they were not taking sides in the conflict. They were hoping to avoid repeating the horrors of World War I. Although this did not prevent the German government from invading the territories and taking away the rights of the citizens in these countries. As you read, take notes on what ways people stood up against the discrimination and violence in Denmark during World War II. So right here, this is going to be my topic, and reading that section, this tells me that this is a real event that has happened, okay, in World War II. I'm going to get my highlighter out just to be, so that you guys can see slightly better. Actually, I think it looks better if I turn the light off. So this is an actual event that happened in World War II, and we're going to focus mainly on how people stood up against violence and discrimination. So for those of you who don't know what this word resist means, okay, we see this word resist in resistance, and we've heard about the resistance in our text, okay? But this word resist or resistance, it means to stand up against. Oh, I'm sorry, that's my dog. So to stand up against, okay? And so we're going to be looking specifically about how they resisted. They stood up against the Nazis, okay? And so that's going to be our topic, the resistance to the Nazis. So let's go ahead and write our genre. So we know it's nonfiction. We know we're going to be focused on the topic, and that was resistance to the Nazis. Okay, so there's my topic, resistance to the Nazis. And now I got to make myself a key question. What is the author teaching me about the resistance to the Nazis? Okay, so I have my key question, I have my topic. Okay, here's my topic. I have them both highlighted here and here. These are both my topic. Okay, they're the same thing. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start reading with my key question in mind. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Most individuals in occupied Europe, remember this word occupied, we learned it in previous weeks. It just means that your country has been taken over by another government, okay? To be taken over. Okay, so if they were occupied Europe, they were taken over by Germany, okay? Most individuals in occupied Europe did not actively collaborate in the Nazi genocide, nor did they do anything to help the Jews and other victims of Nazi policies. This part right here, I'm going to go ahead and underline. Most people did not do anything to help the Jewish people. I'm going to highlight this because this is going to be important. Okay. Throughout the Holocaust, millions of people silently stood by while they saw Jews, Roma gypsies, and other enemies of the Reich being rounded up and deported. Right here, silently stood by is also really key in this moment. I'm gonna highlight that as well. Many of these bystanders told themselves that what they saw happening was none of their business. Others were too frightened to help. In many places, providing shelter to Jews was a crime punishable by death. I'm going to pause right here. And normally I read the whole, Normally I read the whole paragraph, but I'm actually going to stop because there's two important ideas in this section and I want to highlight both. Okay? And so right here it says these bystanders. I'm going to highlight this because I want to identify this term. Okay? This word bystander, okay? It means someone who watches without action. Okay. So if you are bystanding, it means that you are watching it, but you're not participating. You are not doing anything about it. Now, this term we use it sometimes like an innocent bystander. So somebody who watches a crime happen but doesn't do anything about it, or is hurt because of somebody else's actions. That's an innocent bystander. They weren't participating, they were just watching. But in this case, when we talk about a bystander, this means someone who is watching the Jews be treated terribly by the Nazis and not doing anything about it, okay? So what this is teaching me here, I'm going to flip it over this way just so that I have space to write this, but here's my teach me for this first part. Many people did nothing to help the Jews. Okay, so many people did nothing to help the Jews. I can tell that just by looking at this section here. However, today we're going to learn about some special people who actually did do something. And so let's go back to our text and be thinking about that thinking job that we've been talking about. Despite the risks, a small number of individuals refused to stand by and watch. These people had the courage to help. So I'm going to pause right here. A small number of individuals refused to stand by. They had the courage to help by providing hiding places, underground escape routes, false papers. So these were papers that people used to try and get into other countries, like pretend passports and that kind of thing. Food, clothing, money, and sometimes even weapons. So here I noticed that while these people up here didn't do anything, there were a small number of individuals who did have the courage to help. So the author's teaching me here about the resistance. A few people stood up to protect the Jewish people. Okay, let's keep reading. Denmark was the only occupied country that actively resisted, oh, here's that word again, resisted the resistance. We learn about the resistance in our text. They're an organized group that was trying to get rid of the Nazis. The Nazi regime's attempts to deport Jewish citizens. On September 28, 1943, George Ferdinand Duckwitch, the German diplomat, secretly informed the Danish resistance, remember that's that resistance again that we read about in the book, that the Nazis were planning to deport the Danish Jews. The Danes responded quickly, organizing a nationwide effort to smuggle the Jews by sea to neutral Sweden. Warned of the German plans, Jews began to leave Copenhagen, where most of the almost 8,000 Jews in Denmark lived, and other cities by train, car, and on foot. With the help of the Danish people, they found hiding places in homes, hospitals, and churches. Within a 2-week period, fishermen helped ferry, that means to move someone from one place to another, some 7,200 Danish Jews and 680 non-Jewish family members to safety across the narrow body of water separating Denmark from Sweden. We're going to pause right here. As I was reading, I was actually taking myself back to my story, Number of the Stars, and I was thinking about how all of these things were happening in our story, where they were tipped off that the Nazis were coming. So the Jewish people had to go into hiding, and that there were people trying to get them into Sweden, right? All these things are happening in our book, so it's so interesting to see the history side of them here. So the author's teaching me that the Danish people acted quickly to save their Jewish friends. Okay, let's keep reading. We're almost done. The Danish rescue effort was unique because it was nationwide. So right here, I'm going to underline this because this is an important line. Unique means special. When they're talking about nationwide, it means the whole country was doing it. It was not completely successful, however. Almost 500 Danish Jews were deported to the Theresienstadt ghetto in Czechoslovakia. Yet even of those Jews, all but 51 survived the Holocaust, largely because Danish officials pressured the Germans in their concerns for the well-being of those who had been deported. The Danes proved that widespread support of the Jews and resistance to the Nazi policies could save lives. Again, this line is really important because not only did the people in Denmark try to help their Jewish friends, but also the entire country was behind their Jewish citizens. And they showed that if your whole country was behind you, you could save Jewish lives, okay? So the author's teaching me here that the Danes, that's what we call Danish people, the Danes, nationwide support saved many Jewish lives. Okay, last paragraph, and then you guys are going to come up with your own big idea, okay? There are numerous stories of brave people in other countries who also tried to save the Jews from perishing at the hands of the Nazis. So we know that they're not alone. There are other people who also were brave who tried to save the Jewish people. Nearly 12,000 Jewish children were rescued by clergymen in France who found housing for them and even smuggled some into Switzerland and Spain. About 20,000 Polish Jews were able to survive in hiding outside the ghetto in Warsaw because people provided shelter for them in their homes. Some Jews were even hidden in the Warsaw Zoo by the zoo's director, Jan Zabinski. So the author's teaching me here that not only were the people in Denmark trying to save the Jewish people, but there were others around the world who also acted bravely to save Jewish citizens. Okay, great job today, guys. Don't forget, you need to jot down your big idea and then start answering your questions at the back. I think you guys are probably going to do those in small group with your teachers. I hope you guys have an awesome rest of your week. We have 1 week left to go and we are in summer. So have an awesome day and I will see you guys tomorrow. I'm going to post another video tomorrow. Okay. Bye.